Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Ward, and I am the Communications and Events Manager at the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Center. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. The Mansfield Center was founded by an act of Congress in 1983 to honor the legacy of Senator Mike Mansfield and his wife, Maureen Hayes Mansfield. We work to bridge divides on a local, national, and international level to support American democracy. Today's dialogue provides us the opportunity to reconnect with Dr. Oksana Nezhyvenko, who first spoke with the Mansfield community from a Polish hotel room after she, her daughter, and her parents fled the initial attack on Ukraine. 2 years later, on the eve of that anniversary, she is joining us to update us on Ukraine's fight and the conditions in her home country. We are grateful for her partnership and her willingness to engage with our community in dialogue in the midst of Russia's war against her home country of Ukraine. Today's dialogue will be moderated by Kersey Blackford, who first joined the Mansfield team during her time as a student at the University of Montana. She recently joined us as a full-time staff member, working on Mansfield events, marketing, and communications. Kersey has been involved in international affairs throughout her time at the University of Montana. She was an ambassador for the Davidson Honors College, a member of the International Development Studies Club, a student with the Global Leadership Initiative, and a Model United Nations delegate. Coming from a rural background, Kersey is passionate about promoting open dialogue and making global education accessible. She has traveled to 25 countries, attended a year-long study exchange in the Netherlands, and participated in 2 foreign government exchanges in Taiwan and the Kakehashi Project. We've received a number of questions in advance that we will definitely address during this dialogue. However, we encourage you to please continue to submit questions to us throughout the event using the Q&A feature. If you have any questions about the Q&A feature or any tech or any other related questions, please send them in a chat to us and we will continue to address them throughout the event. So with that, I'm very excited to turn our event over to Kersey Blackford to continue introductions.
Thank you, Sarah. It's an honor to be moderating our discussion this afternoon, and I'd like to thank everyone in attendance for joining us on Zoom. As Sarah stated, this week marks the 2-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. However, it's crucial to acknowledge that this conflict has endured beyond 2 years, and the struggle has been long and arduous. I remember the moment the news of the 2022 invasion broke and the discussions that ensued in my political science courses at UM. Students grappled with the state of the war, its implications for the international order, and outcomes regarding its potential resolution. But in our discussions, we overlooked the human dimension of this struggle. It was through Oksana's initial dialogue that we gained insight into the individual narratives, the human will, and the resilience of those directly impacted. Her story embodies the spirit of patriotism and perseverance, traits that Senator Mike Mansfield would undoubtedly admire. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Dr. Oksana Nezhyvenko. Oksana works as an associate professor at the National University of Kiev-Molia Academy in Ukraine, and a researcher at the Center for the Studies of Employment in France. She also works as a consultant at the International Labor Organization, the United Nations, and the World Bank. She specializes in labor economics. In 2019, Oksana was selected as a Study of the U.S. Institute's participant and spent 3 weeks at the University of Montana. Originally from Ukraine, Oksana fled the country with her family in March 2022 because of the full-scale invasion. Now, she lives in France under temporary protection and intends to come back home. Oksana cooperates with the NGOs and the World Bank on assessing the impacts of the war on the labor market of Ukraine and the recovery of the Ukrainian economy. Now, I will pass the floor to Oksana so she can share her insights. Following that, we will engage in dialogue with the questions we've received beforehand, as well as those submitted through the Q&A feature on Zoom. I encourage you all to participate by posing your questions and joining in on the discussion. And without further ado, welcome, Oksana.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Kersey, for hosting this event, for organizing it, for introducing me. And, you know, in the last 2 years, already 2 years, oh my God, almost 3 years. I spoke on a couple of events about Ukraine in Ukrainian language, in English language, in French language. Well, I believe I was speaking French language because my French is not good. And well, I spoke to different audiences. Some audiences were reluctant. Some audiences were difficult to speak to. Some audiences were very open to knowing about Ukraine. And I always knew that there is one audience that I'm so much grateful for your support, and it's Montana and Mansfield Center. You were the first who invited me to speak about Ukraine on the 2nd of March, right, when I just crossed the border. Like I was, you know, I was shocked by the sky, which was safe. It's strange to hear that maybe, but in Poland, when I saw this new sky, for me, I was not afraid to look up because I knew that there is no military fire jets. And then as soon as I moved in with my parents and my daughter, she was she was 1 year and a half at the time. And I was like, okay, I still have 1 hour. We will eat, and then I will prepare some notes for the discussion with you. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's 1 hour less. So I needed to turn on my phone and speak without preparation. That's why I would not want to rewatch that recording. I never watched it, and I don't think I will ever do that. Just because, yeah, that was experience that maybe I would not want to go through again. So in this speech today, and thank you so much for having me, for introducing me, for inviting me, because yeah, as we spoke first almost 2 years ago on the 2nd of March, then in April you hold lectures with me when I spoke about Ukraine, and we had 4 thematic lectures. And then in October last year, I met some of you people in amazing Italy, and we had a panel on Ukraine. And you instantly invited me for this event. So it was planned a long time ago, and I was thinking for a couple of months what I want to share about Ukraine. And I actually had many, many ideas, but I decided that I would speak briefly about me, like why do I speak here for Ukraine? What is my background? Then I want to share with you some of lessons we learned on teaching, because I continue teaching now for my Ukrainian university. Then we will definitely speak about the aid of Ukraine, of US, sorry, of United States for Ukraine, because for us it's crucial. And the largest part of my speech maybe will be devoted to some of the lessons we Ukrainians learned as a society. And maybe this could be interesting for you as students, as university community, as American community. I hope something will be useful, and I hope I will not make any harm to my country. If I do it, please let me know afterwards, and I will never ever speak for my country again. I hope it not. So 5 years ago, right, I was selected as the US Department of State Ukraine elected representative for the Workforce Development Program, which was held in Montana. And I was extremely glad to be in this beautiful state, to observe your mountains and rivers, and like see the mountain river from university. For me, it's shocking because my university is in Central Kyiv. I see high buildings from my university. So yeah, I really enjoy Montana. I received my PhD in France. It was PhD in economics. And as soon as I received this PhD in economics, I came back to Ukraine because I wanted to work in Ukraine. And you know, at that time, in 2018, I was often asked questions from my parents, from my friends, from some colleagues, like, why do you return? You have a European diploma. Why don't you find a job abroad where you will have higher income, better prospects, maybe? And I'm like, it is humiliating to ask questions like that, because for me, this question was not even on the agenda. I would need to come back home to to work in Ukraine. And it was not, France who pushed me away. It was Ukraine who pulled me towards. And to be honest, reflecting now on this experience, because now we are reflecting a lot, Ukrainians, on our experiences, I wasn't able to explain what pulled me towards Ukraine, but I believe that now I can. So I came back home, I did my career as a university professor, I became associate professor at the University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, and I did consultancy for international institutions such as International Labour Organization, United Nations Development Program, now it's World Bank, European Commission, everything on the labor market. So once again, I'm not a historian, I'm not a political scientist, I'm not a diplomat. Some of the questions I can speak about are from my own, reflection, perception, and re-evaluation. And then the war broke off, and I left. I decided to leave, having a little daughter. I decided to leave first to Lviv. We spent 1 week at the west of Ukraine, and then we left to Poland. We spent 1 month in Spain, where my sister lives, and then 3 months in south of France. And then I found now a job, and I'm near Paris, working from here. Long story short, yeah, I was with COVID. It was very interesting experience at the time. Now I'm a bit laughing of it, but of course it was very difficult, and we felt huge solidarity from basically everyone we met on our road, driving the car, changing between my father and me, and going through this experience. So then, I've been living here in France with temporary protection, as it was mentioned. And 1 year ago, I decided that I need to visit Kyiv. Having some anxiety attacks and physical and biological issues that I never had with my health, because I'm a marathoner, I'm a runner. But here, what is happening with my body? So I decided to visit Kyiv. And 1 year ago, I remember seeing my city a bit destroyed, with different kind of glance of people, because many military people, and we see somewhere military cars, and we see, of course, air sirens, air raid alerts. So the image of the city changed, but like the first meeting, it's like the first date. It was so warm, and like you see something that belongs to you. That's why definitely I belong to those 6 million Ukrainians who tend to come back home. As soon as it's safe for my daughter, I will do that. In Kyiv, it has been already 8 or 9 times. I visited my city, I visit public events, I visit cinemas, theaters, different kind of cultural events, manifestations. And it's strange maybe for you to think about Kyiv now, because it's the capital of the country that is in war. But on the other side, we do have these amazing machines provided by the US called Patriots, who provide us with air defense. And I did observe a couple of missile attacks. And it's something horrific to see, terrible. We would never want to see that for anyone, but that's experience that will be with me forever. But we have Patriots, and we live with that. So about teaching, the second point, I teach 2 courses at the university, and just 6 hours ago I finished a course with my amazing group of students. I teach microeconomics and informal economy, and we discussed a lot about what we can do to change our economy, to introduce new reforms, the way our perception of political system and economic system should go on. And I work at the public university, Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. So when the war broke off, we had really many institutions abroad which offered to host our students. Many students of my groups, they were in the United States and Canada, many were in Europe. So we were meeting, somewhere in between of time zone. And we are so grateful to all institutions who hosted or continue to host our students and to our faculty members. And they continue to be abroad, so all of our teaching now is held online. And that's why Teams, Zoom, Moodle, for us, it's something that we use every day. If you stopped using it after COVID, we didn't. And we are sometimes joking that COVID, for us, it was an introduction to the war, because it helped us shift from offline to online. But what I really am sad about is that war took out joy from my students. When I was young, when I was on my bachelor years, like we had parties, we had cultural events, we were enjoying each other, we were visiting, we were traveling. But now my students, they reflect all of that through the war. And it's absolutely different mentality. I don't know if maybe it's better because they are, they have this fundamental thinking, very strong thinking, and they value their time every time, because sometimes we have error rate alert and we need to stop teaching, but they're like, let's continue, please. It's valuable for us. And it's really, very strong. And it's a very crucial age for young people also to affirm values. And I believe that our students at the university at this age, between 18 and 23, 22, 25, they reevaluate what they have and what someone wants to take away from them. And when, someone wants to take it away, you really understand how valuable it's for you. And you fight for that. Okay, so let's go on. Yeah, I really would want my students to read books or go to Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or train for marathon instead of hiding to bomb shelters. But it is our reality. It is our reality that actually, I believe we learned to accept and to live with. So the next point I want to address is the US policy and how my country is unfortunately dependent on international aid and US aid. Why I say unfortunately? Because in 1991, we were country number 3 with a nuclear arsenal. But through political debates and probably political mistakes, we refused the nuclear arsenal that we had in 1994, and then in 1996 we completely were out of nuclear power that could have, of course, protected us from our evil neighbor. So in the US, we of course observed your election process, and we see that there is this difficult fight. We observe it every day. We know your internal issues, and we have, I believe, two streams of expectations from possible president. Like maybe it's 3. Like we still hope that Biden can become a president. So it's number 1. Number 2 is we are afraid that Trump will become the president, But we believe that his pre-election rhetorics may be like rhetorics between elections. So when or if he is voted, he would change his rhetorics. And then the third group is really afraid of him, because what we hear from him now is very much pro-Putin, pro-Russian narrative. And of course, we are afraid of that, very, very much afraid of that. And you see now that the aid for Ukraine is postponed, yeah, the current ideas, sad ideas from the battlefield, sad news from the battlefield, they once again prove that we are dependent on this aid, and we would want it to go another direction. And yeah, I had a quote from Biden where he says that before, at the beginning of the invasion, he mentioned we would support Ukraine as long as it is. But now he shifts his idea to as long as we can. And probably US as a democracy, it's a privilege to be democracy, but it's sometimes a weakness to be democracy. And yeah, now for US it's a bit difficult. So yeah, we are dependent on your country because of the military aid, but today, if we have time, I hope I will share with you some of the ideas how your country can help my country, not on the military and the weapons agenda, but in other ideas. And the last and maybe a bit long part of my speech, which maybe would take 10 minutes, I want to reflect some of the lessons that me and Ukrainians as a society learned from this horrible war. So Russia is an empire, but Russia is not an empire without Ukraine. That's why Russia started this war. And I believe, and our intellectuals believe, that it's not Putin who started this war, it is Russia which started this war. And it is not Putin who hates us, but it's all Russians who hate us. And for me, it's like, I don't understand why they hate me, only because I'm Ukrainian by my perception, but by my identity, by my language, by the culture I love, I would cherish all my life. So we as a society, we find many weaknesses in us, to be honest right now, and some of them I want to share with you. It's been a decade of war, because for us, for our history, the war started in 2014 when Russia invaded Crimean Peninsula and Donbass and Luhansk regions. And it's been 10 years of this reflection, and the word that I want us to think about now is decolonization, because for many years Ukraine has been, for some reason, understood, perceived, reflected as a colony of Russia. And the first time I visited the United States in 2004, 2005, something like that, when I was by the Work and Travel USA program. And of course, I introduced myself as a Ukrainian, and people around me like, oh, it's somewhere around Russia. I mean, it's not a blaming to US. I had the same in Germany, in France, in other parts of the world. And it's always easier to perceive someone small like a satellite of someone big, if like nothing is happening really large in this region. So my country was perceived as a satellite of something big, and I didn't like that. But now the war helped me understand like how can maybe I explain it and combat it. But even if we need to work on this decolonization, in all the world, like I believe everyone should think about that. I hope everyone should think about that. But first and foremost, Ukrainians need to think about that, and I believe that we do. And the war became this filter for us. Simple example, I needed to cancel communicating with some of my not friends, but like close people, because they were not sharing the same values as I do. Unfortunately, right? But like, how can you go and take coffee with someone that you do not share the same goal at the end of this war? For me, it's something very, very crucial. And the war, for me and for many Ukrainians, makes everything too much white and too much black. Like, we don't see many grays in the middle. We see white and black. And decolonization should help us, you know, to filter these historical events and cultural events. So decolonization, what I mean by that? It is a reflection on our history, on our culture, and on our language. And these all three things, they sound too fundamental. And for someone, maybe like too fundamental. Like, we now reevaluate some of the writers, their writings, some of the poets, what did they write, why did they write that? We change monuments, we reflect on the language and the role of language in the society. And although I believe I may sound too harsh, but we as a society, we need to survive. And I believe that we need to go through these fundamental and harsh reflections, reforms, and changes. And it's not a political reforms, it's societal reforms. It's reflections, because decolonization is in the hand. It's not in any kind of the law, it's not in the legislation, it's in our brains. Like me, a graduate from a very patriotic university, Ukrainian speaker for but almost all my life, not all life. I had a Russian speaking period, but I'm grateful to that period too, because I can, you know, compare my thinking in Russian speaking period and Ukrainian speaking period. And maybe if you have questions, we can discuss that. But almost all my life, I'm Ukrainian speaker. So I'm going through this reflection in my head, and even now, I'm learning a lot. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I didn't know this writer. Wow, I didn't know this composer. How could I not know this poet? So this reappreciation, if there is this word in English, of our culture, history, and fight, and our road to victory, it's immensely priceless. So on decolonization, which is actually synonymous to decommunization, I want to tell you that also an example. I learned the history of Ukraine in independent Ukraine. My parents learned the history of Ukrainian Soviet Union in Soviet Union. And my sister learned history in between. So it's like, we live in the same apartment, we live in the same family, but we have three different histories. And it's not easy. That's why, like, Ukrainian context, sometimes it's not easy. Even for us, for Ukrainians. That's why I understand it may be not easy for people from abroad. And it's great that you hear from us and you have our perspective and our lessons. So we are going through this separation from pro-Russian monuments of Pushkin and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. Like, just recently we had this central square one of the central squares in my cave named Tolstoy. We could have another 1 hour discussion. What is wrong with Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and Pushkin? It's just briefly, they are definitely not Ukrainian writers, and their monuments, they should not be in Ukraine. Pushkin wrote horrible things about Ukrainian nationalities and Ukrainian nation and other nationalities, not only Ukrainian. That's why, like, his place is in Russia, but not in Ukraine. So now we reflect on that, and there is this, canon of great Russian culture that I'm thinking a lot. And if you want to question this canon for yourself too, I recommend Eva Thompson and her book, amazing book, Imperial Knowledge. Eva Thompson, Imperial Knowledge. It's a bestseller on Amazon, and she gives examples why Russian culture is dangerous. And then, also in Eva Thompson's book, she writes about Russian victimhood, like Russia in the literature, Russian poets and writers, they represent Russia as a victim, so everyone should protect victim. And yeah, go to Eva Thompson's book. She is amazing in proving that. Also, Russia was very strong in denying all other identities. Like Ukrainian identity, Kazakh identity, Uzbek identity, Georgian identity, and they did it by showing their culture like the big culture, and our culture is small culture. But now we reflect a lot, and actually I am, and our intellectuals in Ukraine, we are very much against canceling culture. So we definitely do not agree with, like, we need to cancel Dostoevsky, we need to cancel Tolstoy, we need to cancel Pushkin, Chekhov, etc. No, we don't need to cancel them. We need to study them. We need to study what is wrong with this country that raise people who rape children, who invade a country that has legal borders, the country that forces 6 million people live abroad and probably never come back. Like, what is wrong with the literature that creates this nation? So we need to study this literature, but instead in Ukraine, we are very much for the idea that we need to show our culture. And if we have the question about that, I can recommend our amazing writers and historians and philosophers that speak about Ukraine in another perspective. Because, if there is a huge country, Russia, and satellites, we don't know enough Polish writers, we don't know Czech writers, we don't know Slovak writers, Hungarian writers, Ukrainian writers, but we have better examples, sorry, but we do have better examples. Yeah, I see that I'm almost out of time, so I will finish with the last point. So what I want to leave with for you as an American community, American university, Slavic does not equal Russian. Slavic studies should not limit themselves only to Russian language, Russian writers, Russian paintings, Russian composers, because it's not Slavic culture. Slavic culture is the countries that surround Russia too. And we need to have a voice. So now it's a time for us, Ukrainians, Czech, Poles, to make ourselves speak and to normalize studies of Eastern European countries in parallel with Russian studies, if not more, because we see what studying Russian culture brought to. So yeah, we should, as a university environment, and I say we because we in Ukraine, we also think how we should promote Ukrainian culture abroad. Ukrainian movies, Ukrainian translation of books. So we do not have enough translations, unfortunately, but we need very good translators. But maybe we need more like supply and demand from abroad, demand from abroad that we need this writer to be translated. So you see, we need to match our demand and supply between you abroad. You need to maybe want to reflect on our culture, and we want to show it to you. So let's meet somewhere in between. There is a really good reading of Yuri Shevelyov, how Slavic became Russian in US. If you want to read on that, it's his letters of Yuri Shevelyov, amazing linguist of Ukrainian language. And what else do you want to see to say? Yeah, 2 more points. So as soon as Russia occupies our territories in eastern Ukraine, in east of Ukraine, in Donbass, in Luhansk, unfortunately in Zaporizhia, in Kherson, they were destroying our libraries. They were burning Ukrainian books. They were introducing their Russian educational system, and they were militarizing Ukrainian children to hate Ukrainians. So you see, culture is not separated from politics, and culture is not separated from the war, unfortunately. So I will end with this quotation of Edward Said, that culture is a battlefield. And if we can reflect more on Ukrainian culture, I mean, you can open yourself to another culture and to see what is strong in this culture, and maybe find strong points in this culture, and maybe find some weak points in another Russian culture, to try to understand, you see, what brought us fighters for our freedom, and Russians conducting these horrible atrocities. So try to look into this cultural and historical agenda. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Thank you, and I'm open for a Q&A session.
Thank you, Oksana. I know that your conversation has inspired a lot of questions from both me and the audience. We will now transition into our Q&A and begin with a few pre-submitted questions. The first, returning to the point you mentioned about the US supporting Ukraine in this fight. How do you believe we can best assist the Ukrainian people by other means than supplying arms? And I want to ask if one way is to support Ukrainian decolonization, and what exactly this would look like.
Great 2 questions. Thank you very much, Kelsey. First, on the second question, decolonization. As a Ukrainian, I would want it to be transmitted abroad, is once again not by canceling Russian culture. No, it's another culture. It's your choice to read the Chekhov or not, to admire paintings of Russian painters or not. But my dream would be that you admire Ukrainian culture. So if I would speak about decolonization, please read Lesia Ukrainka. She is an amazing writer of Ukrainian, like perfect books. She is a classic writer of Ukrainian. And then after the lecture, if you need me to send these names, I can make a list. Ivan Franko, Taras Shevchenko, amazing poets, all translated into English. Stefanik, Vasil Stefanik, really short novel, Stone Cross, Камінний Хрест, Stone Cross. These are difficult readings, especially Stone Cross, but they show our fight. Bahryany, Barka. If it's modern writers, it's my crush, Oksana Zabushko, translated into English. She speaks perfect English, better than me. Google her last name on YouTube, Zabushko. She's just fantastic in explaining another perspective on decolonization, on our history. If there is one book to recommend to read, it's Serhiy Zhadan, called Boarding School, Internat in Ukrainian. It's about first days of occupation in the east of Ukraine, in the city. I never read anything similar. It's difficult. It's funny, but it reflects, like, you know, the reality we go through. So read and understand. It's not a big book. It's not a horribly large book. Our philosophers, Kebuladze, Yermolenko, amazing writers and philosophers. So for me, decolonization is about opening this window, this door to Ukrainian culture, and seeing how rich it is, how bright it is, how new it is. Our composers, Leontovich, we all know Carol of the Bells. Da, 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 da. It's our Ukrainian Leontovich, Carol of the Bells. Lysenko, Silvestrov. Yeah, I want people from abroad to see how rich we are. Okay, so I asked the second question too long. Kersey, your first question, how US can help us? And I have a list of points. I would try to go very, very fast. First, and I'm strong on this statement, the military aid that US provides to Ukraine is not a charity. We, in Ukraine, we are a shield, and we help global security. So international partners of Ukraine need to admit that it's not a charity, because if it's not Ukraine, it's NATO countries, and it's moreover. And now we see the threats of Russia to blow up satellites in the space. So first and foremost, of course, we need military. We need weapons, we need drones, we need immunities, we need air defense. But yeah, that's for politicians. We cannot maybe do it. So let's think about other ways. I believe that, once again, the culture, and if there is a request for more translations of our poets and writers, that would be great. So if American community or French community or German community or Spanish need these translations, and there is no good translation, please create this demand. And we will find, in Ukraine, we will find good translators to do that. So please open this window for us to introduce our culture, which, believe me, is extremely, extremely rich. You in Montana, you invited me to this speech. So it was like an individual support. So maybe find other Ukrainians who need individual support, and let more Ukrainians to give our voice on the perception of our events. And please always invite Ukrainians to speak about Ukraine. It's strange when there is a panel on Ukraine and there is no Ukrainian. There may be Eastern European expert, horribly Russian expert on Ukraine, but not Ukrainian expert. And believe me, it's kind of strange. If you can have a choice between buying Ukrainian goods or not buying Ukrainian goods, please select Ukrainian goods if you want. We have amazing Ukrainian merchants doing with their own hands, you know, this amazing embroidery. So order it from Ukrainian embroiders, not from I don't want to discriminate any other nation, but like support with your money if you want. If you have a possibility, do that. Then, if there is a possibility, do little donations. We don't need $100 donations. If you can refuse your coffee once a week or once a month, go to, we have like the most famous foundations called Pritula Foundation, Come Back Alive Foundation. They're very transparent in their expenditures. United 24 Foundation, Razom, it's a US funded but Ukrainian foundation who support either military goals or humanitarian goals. If you're a pacifist, if you don't want to support military actions, humanitarian needs are immense. Sign petitions for Ukraine. If you can, boycott Russian goods. So there are the goods that start with 4, 6. I mean, try not to buy them because they come from Russia. Email your politicians to support Ukraine. Join global protests. Like on the 24th of February, there will be in most cities worldwide protests and manifestations for Ukraine. Definitely many people and me personally, we will go. We need to see that people support my country. If you can, support Ukrainian freelancers. If you order some job at Upwork, Freelance.com, etc., and you have a choice between Ukrainian and non-Ukrainian, and you tend to believe that they do the similar job. Again, I don't want to discriminate anyone. I don't believe we are better. Definitely, we are not better. We are not better. We have a right, and that's all I believe. That's why if you can support Ukrainian and you like his or her quality, do that. It would mean a lot for our purchasing power. And yeah, that's the last I will speak because I have a long list. I don't have time for that. If you can stop saying the Ukraine, Kiev, Lvov, Kharkov, Odessa with 2 S, please stop doing that, because correct is Ukraine without the. We are not a region. We are a united country like France. It's not the France. It's not the Poland. It's Poland. It's not the Ukraine. It's Ukraine. It's not Kiev. It's Kyiv. It's not Lvov. It's Lviv. It's not Kharkov. It's Kharkiv. It's not Odessa double S. It's Odessa 1S. So we shift from Russian way of interpreting our names to Ukrainian way of introducing our names. Sorry for this very, very long answer.
Thank you, Oksana. You've left us with a lot of thoughts and sentiments and actions we can take. And I know that all of us will be leaving today thinking about those actions. I also want to highlight and ask for that list of writers and poets, because I know that those in our audience would really appreciate having that list.
I would very, very gladly do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I want to turn to something extremely relevant to the past week. What is your opinion on the death of Alexei Navalny? And may I add to that also his wife's video response, as well as the unfolding protests?
Good question. I was expecting it, but to be honest, it's a difficult question. Why? Because we again shift the agenda from Ukraine to Russia. And to me, and now I will sound really, really harsh and maybe like, you know, cold. He's a Russian. And to me, his death, it was something natural because he perceived himself, and he he didn't perceive, he was in opposition. So it would be too harsh to say it's natural, but he is it's really difficult to try to explain it in normal words. I'm sorry for my pause, but when I was listening to his rhetorics, honestly, I didn't see much critique towards the policy that Putin was making. Although he claimed to be in opposition to Putin, but his messages, they were not against war. His messages were like, you know, pro-peace, but pro-peace is not against war, if you feel the difference. Because in this war, it's either Russia or Ukraine. I mean, thinking white and black, it's either Russia or Ukraine. So of course, as a Russian, he was choosing Russia. He was choosing Russian Empire. He openly spoke for occupation of Crimea. That's why, for me and for our intellectual elite in Ukraine, he was a Russian, and his rhetorics, he was not against killing Ukrainian civilians, children, soldiers, not against atrocities that Russian army is conducting on my territory of Ukraine. But his rhetorics was for Russian Empire, like big empire state. That's why it was a matter of time. I'm sorry, I would really sound very harsh, but it was a matter of time, because Putin, he doesn't want to hear anyone who is contradicting him. That's why we were waiting for it to happen either now or in 1 year or in 2 years. Honestly, for me, it was not such a great news to happen. I was probably expecting it to happen sooner or later. Yeah, I'm sorry that I was too not too sympathetic on answering this question.
Well, we appreciate your honesty, so thank you. I want to turn to a question we received in the chat. You mentioned Ukraine's road to victory. What does a victorious endpoint for Ukraine look like for you?
Wow, that's a very difficult question, because I'm united with my president Zelensky. I'm united with the government of Ukraine, and for us, the borders of Ukraine of 1991 are the victory. We want to get back Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia region. I was in Zaporizhia just a couple of years before the invasion. I was doing a research there. For me, it's very painful to see the cities I was in occupied now. Crimea, of course. Crimean Tatars are amazing people, and their culture is so rich, and we need it back in Ukraine. Because under Russian occupation, their culture is being destroyed. That's why for us, the borders of Ukraine of 1991 are the end of the war and our victory, but not also that. Because if we want to win, we need to really, you know, go through this decolonization. Again, we speak about decolonization. We need to fight this pro-Soviet, pro-communist, pro-Russian agenda in our brains. Like me, born in Soviet Union, but raised in independent Ukraine, but I still have some of the Russian poems in my head. I learned too much Russian culture, although as a matter of fact, I became Ukrainian. So we really need to reflect a lot on our lessons, and we really need to start appreciating what we as Ukrainians created. We need to perceive ourselves as an independent and strong nation. And I really like the quote of Mariam Nayem. She is a cultural scientist and blogger from Ukraine. She is amazing, and she mentioned decolonization starts with love. It's very, you know, strange phrase, but for me, this phrase means that decolonization starts with love to my culture, to appreciating the books that I read now, the language that I speak, the understanding and perception of the history of thousands of killed historians, writers, poets of the previous century, 19th century, who fought for our freedom. You know, I believe that this spirit of fight, it's with us. If you want to read about that, go to YouTube and Google and enter Sandarmoh. Sandarmoh. It's a horrible space, and now I have chills on my body. In 1930s, 10,000 Ukrainian writers and historians, geographers, poets, theater producers, directors were killed there just because, you know, they perceived themselves as Ukrainians, only by the question of a nation. And I can give you names of Kulish, Kurbas, Підмогильний, amazing writer of a novel called Misto. They were all who needed, you know, to write more. They were killed at the age of 33, 40, 50. It's the best age for writers. And they were just tortured to death of hunger or just killed because they perceived themselves as Ukrainians. That's why, yeah, we need to feel, you know, this grand history that is ours, to reflect on it, to appreciate it, and to fight for it.
Thank you. I want to wrap up with one last question. We have watched your development over the years and have continued to see your passion and love for your home country. To conclude, I'd like to ask, what drives you and gives you hope for the future?
Wow. First, my daughter. Now she is 3. She is Ukrainian, of course. She speaks Ukrainian. She dreams to come back home. She knows there is war. So yeah, my daughter, it's number 1, and my values, number 2. Because, you know, in this filtering what is right and wrong, and my values is the strongest help, how I sort of reflect on that white and black. Again, my history and my culture. I am ashamed to learn about these amazing writers that I told you, and one more name that I want you to leave with is Vasil Stus. Stus, I think he is the poet number 1 in Ukraine. He is underevaluated, and we need to learn his poems. His poems, for me, are like weapons. He died in the camp, and he knew that he would die in the camp, but he was openly protesting against Soviet Union, and he died just 2 months before I was born. Yeah, and I would also say that it's a privilege, you know, to have this history. It's a privilege to have this grand force behind me that drives me. That's why maybe my daughter, my values, my culture, history, and believe that we are going in the right direction. That would be my strength in this fight.
Oksana, thank you so much. On behalf of the Mansfield Center and the Montana community, we sincerely appreciate your openness and sharing your insights and engaging a dialogue with us both today and 2 years ago. Your words are extremely powerful, and your messages will resonate with all of us leaving here today. As we conclude, I want to draw your attention to our upcoming dialogue with Dr. Paul Lauren on Thursday, March 7th. We invite you to join us for a presentation on the life and legacy of Senator Mike Mansfield. Thank you all for being here with us today and for your continued support of the Mansfield Center. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much.